what's Missin Curfew. It's when you kind of play guilty, but you show up.
How nice is a green light on the road, though? No practice tomorrow, no plane, just go.
Scotty Upshall in the clear, and he scores! Right in front, scores!
A few laughs, a little bit of fun, and obviously a lot of hockey talk.
You're listening to Missin Curfew.
The lads.
Updogg, when you were growing up, who was the jersey guy?
Yeah, I was an Alberta guy, but I was a Fort Mac kid. I had the 99 jersey.
You had the 99?
I liked Messier. I like Gretzky, but yeah, I had a Gretzky jersey.
Well, I had two.
What about you?
I had Wendell Clark, and I had this guy, number 93, Dougie Gilmour. Dougie, thank you so much for taking the time to join a Missin Curfew, buddy. This is honestly a humbling experience for me, buddy. You're my favorite player growing up, so I appreciate you taking the time.
No, my pleasure, guys. Thank you.
And I want to start off first and foremost with your nickname, Killer, right? I mean, it's got to be one of the best nicknames in the history of the game. The way you played, you deserved it. But first of all, Dougie, who gave it to you? And did it have anything to do with the movie Slapshot, obviously, Killer Carlson?
It did not.
Okay.
Brian Sutter was my roommate. He was our captain for 5 years. And, he taught me how to compete each and every night. When coaches or people say, don't take the game home with you. He says, take the game home with you. So I was a 155-pound centerman. I came out of junior with a lot of points, but I made the team in St. Louis as a checker. And I was 155 pounds. I had a mullet. And so Brian called me Charlie. It was Charlie Manson. And that's where the name changed over to Killer a little bit later. But to this day, if I see Brian, he calls me Charlie.
Missing a couple teeth, long hair. Yeah.
He was 155 pounds, had a mullet.
That's good. Hey, just talk a little bit about St. Louis, Dougie. I played there. I finished my career there. You were just a youngster coming in with the Plaguers and, the history there, the Sutters. Bring a little bit about that for your first experience in the NHL.
Yeah, you know what? I was in August. I didn't have a contract yet, and I was in Dusseldorf. So I was there for 2 weeks, and I was going to sign there. And then there was a Harry Ornest bought the team from the existing owner, Rolf Saprina. And at that time, Ron Caron came in, and I came back right away. I left my equipment in Dusseldorf, and I had to get all new equipment just to get out of there in time. So it was a great experience. We had Bernie Federico, Blake Dunlop, Guy Chouinard, Larry Patey, Mike Zook, and then Alain Lemieux, which is Mario's brother. So Jacques Demers was a coach, and he said, I don't care how many points you had in junior, I need a checker. And so, come on, I was 23 pro, or 23 minors, or 65 pro. I wanted so I ended up getting the job, and I got to play against the best players in the world each and every game. And, Jacques Demers would say, we're playing against Edmonton. If Gretzky goes to the bathroom, go with him. So I followed him all over the ice. And I think these guys might have been a little hungover that game because we were winning 5-3. Going into third period, they woke up and they beat us like 7-5.
Welcome to the 80s Oilers.
Yes.
Yeah, they were between the first and second, like, boys, let's shake this hangover off here. Yeah. They're going, here, let's get it.
Yeah.
But Doug, you mentioned as a checker when you growing up, when you're coming into the league, like, you obviously play with that chip on your shoulder throughout your whole career, and then eventually you turn into the scorer you were. But did you have to teach yourself to play with that edge, or is that something that you had in junior and growing up, like that little, if you fuck with me, I'm going to stick you or whatever, that chip on your shoulder you had?
Yeah, there's different components of that, guys, because, you know what, when you're a small guy, I didn't get drafted my first year. My second year, I got drafted in the 7th round. Some players in my team were drafted ahead of me. Guys I played against were ahead of me. And so I had a chip on my shoulder. And it was, I think it was my second game going into my final year of junior. And I get in a fight with Mike Eagles. And I'm a lefty. So is he. I didn't know that. He broke my nose and cheek bone that game. And I got home. My brother is 13 years older than I am. He played with Darryl Sittler and Dan Maloney and London Knights. And he went on and played 6-7 years in the minors. But got in the car. I was going back home to get my nose fixed. And he goes, what are you doing? You know what? Play with an edge, but you know what? You don't need to fight anybody right now. The team needs you. And so, you know what? Just go out and play your game and everything will take care of it. So, and at the same time, guys, you know what? The best thing that ever happened to me, the motivation side of it, was the scouts, media, everybody said I was too small. So I just wanted to prove everybody wrong. Once I put my helmet on, your eyes spin a little bit, and you're petite.
The eyes get a little squirrely. Yeah, the wires cross, and here we go.
Oh, honestly, when I took my helmet off, guys, half the time, you get out of the shower, you dry your hair, it's like, did I really do that today?
Yeah, totally.
But you had to. Like, going into a game, I never looked at who I was playing against as a forward. I looked at who I was playing against. Just say Chicago. You had Marchment. You had Steve Smith. You had Chelios going to run you every shift. You had Dave Manson. So this is what I got to face and get ready to play against that night. So that was my motivation. Is just, who am I playing against tonight on the blue line?
That's a little different than the skilled guys today when they go up there. They're not quite thinking the same thing, Dougie, when they get up for pregame nowadays as you were, where you're like, oh, shit, Dave Manson, here we go. Look out.
Yeah, no. And you were going into the league, like, it's Philadelphia, Ben Wilson. And it's like, there was a guy I'm looking at in Philly, standing at the kind of inside the red line, looking at their team, and there's a small guy over there. He looked like he was like 38 years old. And Brian Sutter steps in front of me. He goes, what are you looking at? And he goes, well, who's that guy? He goes, do not look at him. Do not Lemieux. It was Randy Holt.
I'm going to do you a favor, kid.
Yeah, do not even look at him.
Yeah.
So
that's beautiful.
Well, we used to have guys like Brian McGrath and Colton Orr and these guys. Like guys on my team, Doug, like, don't even look at them.
Yeah, let them sleep.
If they're not doing anything and they're not fired up, please God, don't get them going.
Yes.
I'm going to have to get my ass kicked if it does happen. But Dougie, we're big guys here on Missin Curfew about guys that helped me and up when we were younger. Like I always love getting guys like yourself that are legends. Like when you first came into the league, who were guys that kind of took you under their wing, maybe out for your first dinner, first beer on the road? Is there any guys you remember that really taught you how to be a pro off the ice kind of thing?
I'd go back to Brian Sutter, but also I didn't play power play my first 3 years. So Pat Hickey, I played the penalty kill with him, but I used to have like a little heel curve, right, when I came out of junior. In those days, we had the wooden sticks, and then we had this guy, a big Swede on our team named Jorgen Pettersson. And I played with him my first year in Wayne Babbage. And Jorgen would grab my sticks. He goes, oh, I like. He goes, every game, he goes, Doug, I'll be hiding this lot, feed me. He's not going in the corners.
No.
So Pat Hickey used a straight stick, and he goes, try my stick. So I went to a straight Titan at the time because you couldn't break them, and nobody wanted to use a straight stick. So that's where it kind of changed on me. So Bernie Federko was another guy that helped me out. And there's a guy that passed away many years ago, Rick Wilson, that we lived about, a mile away from each other in Kingston. And he was a first-round draft pick to St. Louis, and he took care of me. So my brother-in-law sold me my car. I got my signing bonus for $10,000. And then my first car was a white Z28, baby blue stripes on the bottom, two tops. I get to St. Louis first day. I'm staying with him, and get up in the morning. My speakers are gone. The two tops are gone. And it's like, I guess I gotta get rid of this car.
This isn't working here. This is going to get sniped in St. Louis.
Yes.
What was it like playing that old barn in St. Louis, right? That was the old one. I mean, that was a great thing about your era too, Dougie, was you guys got to play in all those old barns that had character.
Well, it went from the Checker Dome when they made the sale to the arena. And this is a good story. It was a great building. It was electric there. It wasn't downtown. It was close to it, but it was it was a nice little area. Harry Ernesto owned our hockey club for 3 years. He bought the team off the Royal Supreme for $3 million and bought the rink for $10 million. He ended up selling it 3 years later for about $38 million. But so my third year, we're going into Calgary at 86, Game 7. And if we win, we're going against Montreal Canadiens. And we had a charter all ready to go. We lost. There was no charter. We had to find our way home.
Where's the plane?
Let's just stay here for a bit.
You get your team bonuses from the league, but you also have your personal bonus from the team. And there's Mark Hunter and different guys. We all left St. Louis to go back to Eastern Ontario here. And around mid-July, it's like, it was probably about $12,000. That was bonuses for us for that year. And that's what you lived off in the summertime, right? So finally you get our check. But when bounce. We didn't, this is the NHL.
Yeah.
We didn't get our checks until mid-August.
Yeah.
So we're like $12,000. So it was just a different time. And great fans. I was back there not long ago for the All-Star game and to see some old friends and stuff, and just love the city.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to pay off all those tabs if you have the check balances, right? I was looking forward to it. I've been buying the boys beers all summer. I needed that.
Yeah. What kind of summer am I going to have with this on the lake? Nothing. Can't even buy gas.
And Doug, Doug, I want to ask you about moving forward to the Calgary Flames. A guy that I got to know in Nashville, and Uppy did too a little bit, was Terry Crisp. Obviously, you guys win the Stanley Cup there. It just seemed like you guys had a great group of guys there. Just maybe talk us through winning a cup that early in your career and playing with that team and how good of a coach Crispy was.
Crispy was great. He was, he liked to scream a little bit.
He liked to talk.
He used to yap at us in between periods, and I first got there. So the leadership with Lanny, Poplinski, Joel Otto, Timmy Hunter, you got Al McGinnis, Gary Suter, our rookie that year at Steel Fleury, Gary Roberts, Nieuwendyk, Hawkins.
Wow. That's
like Joey Mullen. The list goes on. Brad McCrimmon on defense, and it's we won the President's Trophy that year by 1 point over Montreal, and but I'll never forget. I think it was my first week. The season started, and Crispy's yelling at me in the dressing room after the first period, and Lanny just said to me, he goes, "You know what? Put the earplugs in. Don't listen. We're all here to play, and we know what we have as a team, so we're all going to work together." So, but Crispy was great. To be honest to God. His story that he always comes back to me. He goes, "This is like 10 minutes to go in the game. I got 2 goals." He goes, "If you get a hat trick in Calgary those days, you get cowboy boots." He goes, "I'll put you back out there, but I want the cowboy boots." I said, "Sure, no problem."
Yeah. Any sort of comparison on like what it was like to come back to Calgary after winning a cup, and what maybe happened in Calgary that you wanted out?
Well, honestly, Doug Risebrough became GM. Cliff Fletcher went to Toronto that year. I had to go to arbitration. I won the arbitration. He wasn't happy about that. We're in San Francisco. We're going to play the Cow Palace. And before San Jose Rick was built, and you have a joining room or joining door with somebody else. And I got up in the morning about 7 o'clock in the morning, and I heard my name. I'm going to trade that asshole. I'm going to trade this guy. And so 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm laying on the floor listening to Doug Risebrough on the phone back east or west, but he's talking to people about trading me and other guys. So I knew it was going to happen. So New Year's Eve, we're playing against Montreal, and we have a team party afterwards. And I had all my sticks out of the dressing room except 4, and we won. I scored team winner that night, and we had a team party. I told the guys, I'm going to Hockey Canada, which was in Calgary at the time. I'm going to go train with them until I get traded. And I apologize to this, but you know what? My time's not going to last here. And so 24 hours later, I was traded to Toronto for 5-5, and again, then they just blew up after that. Like McGinnis left, Nieuwendyk left, Roberts was hurt, but it was sad because we felt we had a pretty good team there. As I'm not going to say a dynasty, but we had a chance to win each and every year, and it was a real shame that I left. But you know what? I came to Toronto, and it was pretty exciting times.
Gary Roberts was a machine, eh? Hey, Dougie, I played with Gary. When I was in Tampa, I played with Rob. I was my second year in the league. I'd come in the morning and be like, "Morning, Robs." And his neck, Doug, he was so mangled that he'd just have to go like that. He'd be in the gym lifting weights and still wanting to fight. Like, back when he was young, he was even more of a savage, wasn't he?
Okay. Gary and I were neighbors. And he goes, "Come on, let's go for a bike ride." I said, "No." And first off, I would do hills. I'm a runner. I'm not a biker. So finally I said, "Okay, I'm going to go with you. And he's got like a $4,000 mountain bike at the time, back in 1980 or 91. And I got a 5-speed with a baby seat in the back. And so we went 26 miles. And at the end of it, we're going to go up a hill on a race. And I passed him. And he threw his bike down the hill. He was so pissed off. but he came over to my house about, 3 hours later. And I said, you want a beer or something? And he's like, no. He goes, where's your basement? And it's like, oh, fuck. So I had a little gym down there, and I was doing my own training and doing my own running. But he was like, yeah, he was a machine, honestly, and to this day still is.
Yeah, I was impressive at that stage of his career, everything he'd been with, that he was the first guy in the gym, just lifting the whole gym. I loved Rob's too. He was great to me in my short time with him in Tampa. So, Dougie, obviously Toronto, this is where, I started becoming a Dougie Gilmour fan. What were your first thoughts before you get there? Because not a lot of success in Toronto leading up to when you get there, right? I mean, they hadn't had great teams throughout the 80s, maybe here and there, but what were your first thoughts when you heard, all right, here I go, Toronto Maple Leafs?
Well, being from Kingston, I was pretty excited about it being closer to home, and there's nowhere to go but up. And it was just it was a pretty good situation. I had a relationship with Cliff Fletcher that, he's going to make some changes. Some good things are going to come out of this. And, I can't say enough that I had the chance to play there. And like Wendell, I knew Wendell from the 87 Canada Cup. And I finally told him what I did to him in the 87 Canada Cup, because when he got cut, I signed his Leaf pants to Wendell, best wishes, Claude Lemieux. And he would ask me on the ice, it wasn't me, it was Muller or Howard Chuck, somebody else had to do that. But, so when I got there, I said, yeah, it was me. So, he was a competitor. You guys know, tough as nails. I can go on with Wendell with stories, but, Cliff Fletcher added a lot of different pieces. Mike Foligno, Krushelinski, Bob Rouse. The list goes on. And we added Dave Anderchuk that year and Darren Pupa for Grant Fuhr. And Felix kind of stole the show from there. And it was just a great run. And, what I think the biggest thing with that team, with Pat Burns too, is that everybody accepted the role. There was nobody saying, okay, I want more ice time. No, whatever happens, just accept your role. And it's even when, young guys are always coming up and they're trying to take my job. I said, your job is to take my job.
Yeah.
I don't want you to do it, but you can't take my job.
Luck. Well, that's your good luck, but that's your job. Yeah, exactly.
Well, exactly. But you want to get the utmost, advantage. Is like, you're better than this guy. Come on, keep going. And a friend of mine that, he's with Minnesota right now, Darby Henderson. I did that with Darby. I said, Darby, you're better than what you're showing right now. Just go, keep on playing. So that's what we're all friends. And it was, back in the days, no cameras and all that stuff. It was, we had our nights, Monday nights at the Phoenix, and Wednesday night at the Loose Moose, and all that stuff. So it's, we had some good times for sure. And I always tell the story of Pat Burns. When he got hired, he goes, yeah, we got a good player, Daryl Gilmour. So then he goes, I mean, Doug, so I apologize. And then he called me up and he goes, where are you? I said, I'm downtown. I live right beside the Gardens, like 30 yards away. And he goes, let's go for a couple of beers. So we went for a couple of beers. We went to a place that rhymes with Gilmour's on Dundas in Toronto. And it's called Fillmore's. It's might be a strip joint or something like that. But we were there for about a half hour. We got noticed and then we left. But he just said, I want you to be the best player in practice each and every day, and everybody will follow.
Doug, I got to ask you, 93, Game 7, you guys go into the Joe and beat the Red Wings. To me, as a Leafs fan growing up, that was kind of the moment where, holy fuck, here we go. Maybe we got a chance. Walk me through just that day or what you remember, how big that was for the whole franchise to be like, wow, we just went in there and knocked these boys out.
Okay, I just ran into a guy in Collingwood the other day. So we had a little mini training camp in Collingwood before we fly to Detroit. at the same time, my grandfather passed away, and I can't go home. So I got to stay with the team and get ready for this. And our last practice, when Wendell and I are walking out the rink, we're walking back up the road, and there's a guy probably about 14 years old driving a Trans Am. And he's got a buddy in the car with him, and he's waving at us, not paying attention, right into a telephone pole. I saw him the other day in Collingwood, and he told me this, and I started laughing. Wendell was there too, and we were both laughing our ass off. He goes, I had 5 charges on that. That was my mom's car. And we just wanted to see you guys. So the motivation side of it, we lost the first 2 games in Detroit, and then my mom and dad came up for game 3, and I said, bring all my grandfather's T-shirts. So I wanted to wear those under my uniform. And we won the next 3 games, and then we got our butt kicked at home. I think it was 6-2. And then we walked in Detroit for game 7, and we found a way to win that. It was a special time, and it was that whole run, like, honestly, 21 games and 42 nights was exhausting, but it was pretty special.
Yeah, it was special for me, Doug. I'll never forget it. And my boy, the Updogg here, he got Gretzky. He got the great one on our podcast a few months ago, probably 3 or 4 months ago. And I had to ask him, Doug. I had to ask him about the high stick that Carey Fraser missed. And I said, Wayne, and he said something along the lines, I had a bad back, so Dougie could deal with a little cut under his eye or something. But take me back to the high stick, Dougie. I got to be honest, buddy. I'm still not over it. It still hurts. But just walk me through all that situation.
Okay, so it's Donnie Anderson just took a penalty, and we're killing a penalty last, I think, maybe a minute to go in the third period, and it was just off the draw, and he came up underneath. Carey Fraser said it was a follow through, but it wasn't. He came up underneath me, hit me in the chin, and you just can't blame Carey on this. One referee, there's 2 linesmen out there, but it's a linesman call. It's 5-minute game misconduct. Well, that would have been a riot in LA at the old Forum there. So, I kind of blame the linesman too. Just say, Carey, just say you saw it. Give him a 2-minute penalty, and they're going to play 4-on-4. And again, going into game 7, you tell me, it's like going into training camp, you give me game 7 at home, I'll take those odds. Yeah. Unfortunately, Bob McKenzie wrote an article with the Toronto Star saying that Gretzky hasn't done anything in the series. That's not a good idea.
Yeah, way to go. I didn't know that. Way to go, Bob.
Yeah, see, that's the insider we're looking for.
I didn't know that. Way to go. He's fired up.
Then he has one of his best games of his life. He's the best player in the world, man. And I copycatted. I played against him. I checked against him. I learned how to play behind the net. And again, it's like you always tell kids, and I know it's hard sometimes, but even the kids that I was coaching in junior said, guys, watch the NHL guys. Have your favorite player and watch what he does. Yeah. And you can learn from that and come into practice and challenge it and practice it. And that's how you get better.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Speaking about behind the net, one of my favorite Dougie Gilmour goals ever was against CUJO. That was playoffs too, right, Dougie, where he did about 6 turnarounds behind the net there, and CUJO didn't know what was going on, but you don't see that much. It was just a great goal, like character, classy goal.
Well, you know what? Again, I've never practiced that, and people, it's like, could you do it? Not a chance. It's one of those days, guys, that I was behind there. Nicky Borshevsky was high in the slot, and Anuchuk is the big body that I'm looking for, and I went this way, I went that way, I went back this way, and you know what? Andy had Zombo blocked, and I just spun around, and luckily it went in. And again, CUJO made, I think, 80-something saves that game. It was double overtime. And the nice thing about it was, like, I didn't have to practice the next day. It was awesome. It was just, it was a rest day. But true, after the game was over, I'd lie on the trainer's table and both arms out, and they put IV in me, and I'd go home like I didn't even play. Yeah. So it was a special time, and I thank the doctors. Otherwise, again, 21 games and 42 nights, and you're going to the West Coast, and then the next year, 93-94 season, we lost to Vancouver, and they went 2 games at home, 3 games in Vancouver, then 2 games at home, and we lost second one, and then we lost 3 there. So it was a great run those 2 years, and then we traded our captain, and I know we got bats and everything else, but that was a lot of heart and soul in that dressing room. Because I'll tell you a story, that 94 series, we're playing Vancouver, and Gino Ojic's all over me every shift. And Wendell skates by Pavel Bure, by the face-off, says, Pavel, if Gino touches Doug one more time, we're going to knock you out. That was it.
Yeah.
Doesn't see Gino the rest of it.
Yeah. Dougie, thank you for, buddy. I appreciate it, buddy. And like I said, you're one of my favorites, you and Wendell growing up. So thank you for taking the time, and you're a legend, my man.
Pleasure, guys, and continue success.
Updogg. You got him, fella. Well, I got to take the blame for the first fumble, but you got the great one for the boys.
I happened to go up to Edmonton, my home country, last week to see some games, and I happened to catch the great one sitting in the lobby. Mr. Wayne Gretzky, thanks for coming on Missin Curfew. It's an absolute honor to have you on.
Great thrill to be here, and I hope when I was coaching you weren't missing curfew. That's where you got the name from.
I wasn't as good at Missin Curfew back then as I started to get the latter years of my career. You had to be smart back in the day, but there wasn't much getting by you, Wayne. I tell you that.
I was joking. I truth be told, Scotty was a pleasure to coach, and he worked hard every day. And I told him when he got there, you practice hard and work hard in the games. You're going to play so much, your tongue will be hanging. So, from old school, just show up and work hard. That's all you got to do.
Wayne, I got to just start this off with one story because this is great. But after the Winter Classic, I had my family in town in St. Louis. We played the Hawks. Wayne was there with the alumni, which is a great alumni, and we'll talk about that in St. Louis. But we happened to sit down with you and Trevor to have dinner. And I told this quick story, and you can elaborate after. But I was like, Wayne, you're the first coach I've ever had to put me on the 5-on-3 power play. Like, it revamped my career, thankfully. And then he's laughing over there. Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, well, listen, you know what? As I said earlier, you work hard, you play hard, practice hard, but you went to the dirty areas. You got to have guys that are going to go in front of the net. You got to have guys that, even though it's a 5-on-3, you still have to set up the right screen. You have to get yourself dirty. You have to get those kind of goals, and you did that. So, you earned your spot on that 5-on-3. No question about it. So, no, honestly, it was a privilege to coach you. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. You were like, well, it's glad that it saved your career because it was the last coaching job I ever got.
You know where that got me? I shut on the panel.
Yeah. Wayne, this is a question I always wanted to ask you. When you first came into the league, and who were the veteran guys that maybe helped you out, or maybe took you out for your first dinner on the road, or some guys that you look back that really helped you feel comfortable at such a young age as such a superstar player?
Well, I was a baby. I signed at 17.
Yeah.
When you're 17, you know everything, right? I was still going to high school. I had a teammate named Jimmy Nielsen. Part of my deal with my dad was, okay, I'll sign the contract, but you have to stay in school till you're 18 years old. I said, okay, I'll do that. So I was in high school in Edmonton, and Jimmy Nielsen was an old ex-New York Ranger, wonderful man. And his daughter was my age, and I used to pick her up in the morning. We go to school. I go to a couple of classes and go to practice. So I was really young. But I was fortunate. I played with guys like Jimmy Nielsen, guys like Ace Bailey, people like Colin Campbell, Dave Dryden. And these guys, Ron Chipperfield, Blair McDonald, these guys, they treated me in the locker room like a teammate and like a veteran, like a man. But away from the rink, they treated me like a 17-year-old. They looked after me. They took care of me. They watched over me. They were tremendous. And if I didn't have that guidance at a young age, it's tough. And so when we went into the NHL, Glenn Sader, I'll never forget, said, this group is not going to win a Stanley Cup, but these guys are going to help me get to that ultimate goal of winning a championship, because guys like Messier and Curry and Coffey and Kevin Lowe and Anderson, Andy Moe, Grant Fuhr, they're going to one day lift the Stanley Cup. But those guys, these are the guys who are going to get them to a point of, okay, here's what you have to do to become a great pro. So we had guys like Colin Campbell and Blair McDonald and Ron Chipperfield, Dave Dryden, Ron Lowe, just Bill Cowboy Flett, They were just tremendous to us, and they understood their roles. They weren't envious of us. They understood they were only going to be there 1 or 2 or 3 years, and then they probably wouldn't be there when we got on that great run, and that was the case. But those guys were all instrumental, not only for me, but for the whole organization. And then when he brought in Lee Fogelin, and he was sort of the godfather to our team, he was the one guy that we all looked up to, and nobody ever said a bad word about Fogie. He was our leader. He was our guy. He wasn't, he got 2 goals in a year on a team that got 400 a year, but he was so vital and so important to the team that, it was infectious and went throughout the whole hockey club.
Yeah, and Wayne, those Oilers teams, we all know how good you guys were on the ice, but one of my favorite things, I actually watched it one night, me, Upshaw, and Lupul, we opened up a bottle of red wine, and we watched the boys on the bus. And it was the first time that I'd seen that. But to see how close you guys were as a team, I don't know. To me, Uppy and Loops, his 3 best friends, Gretz, I was like, wow, man, this is like, you guys are sitting around playing cards, and like, that's how close you guys really were, huh?
We were closer than probably people even knew or thought. When you make trades and a guy comes in, I remember Pat Hughes came in and Mark Napier came in. Donnie Jackson came in. Bill Ranford. Guys would come in and they didn't realize or understand how close we were. They just thought we were a bunch of brass, arrogant SOBs, But we get after each other. My gosh, I hated playing against Kenny Linsman, and we were teammates and won the championship together, and I would play with that guy any single day. He was a great teammate, unselfish, scored big goals in big games. We were so when a guy walked in the locker room, he was part of our team right off the bat. Nobody ever said, you're on the 3rd line or 4th line, or you go here, you can't hang around. Everybody immediately gravitated, and we made sure that if a guy got traded in, he didn't stay in a hotel. Somebody took him into their house so he got a place to stay. We wanted everybody comfortable in our locker room. And so Glenn was a big part of that. Glenn was the guy who started all that. And, it just, to this day, I think the Oilers still sort of have that feeling in their locker room.
And they got a much nicer locker room now than they did back in the day when you were there.
Well, I love the locker room we had, but the one that today is pretty nice.
Wayne, I'm from Fort McMurray, Alberta, so north of Edmonton. And, winters in Edmonton are long and hard. And you guys back in the day winning and being so close, and I feel like you were so close with the fans too, right? Like you win championships, you get to know everyone. What was it like just, being out on the town and being an Albertan and that kind of feeling as you started to just go on? Like you must have felt like you knew the whole town.
Yeah, you did. And, so I could look across the ice or in the corner, I'd see the same people 35 out of 40 games. It was like family. It wasn't sort of fans. We would go out for dinners. We'd go around town. We'd go out. Nobody ever bothered us. Of course, every now and then somebody said, my son wants an autograph. Those days there wasn't cameras. There was more autographs. And people were very gracious to us. We loved it. We spent the summers there. We probably had 17 out of 20 guys that would live there in the summertime. And we loved it. We're all part of the community. We won our first Stanley Cup. And I remember we were 3 hours in the locker room. It was pandemonium with family and friends and probably people that we didn't even know somehow got in the locker room. But everyone's in there and taking pictures and telling stories and drinking out of the cup. And it was myself and my dad and Joey Moss and the Stanley Cup were the last few people in the locker room. And I remember we were going across the street to the convention center. The city was throwing a party of about 1,000 people. And I said to Glenn, well, what do we do with the Stanley Cup? Because none of us has ever won the Stanley Cup. Glenn had never won. He lost a couple of times in the fight. So Glenn looked at me and he goes, well, you guys won the cup, take it. And so we took it. And so every time I see the Hockey Hall of Fame, I said, you should be paying the other players a percentage. We got you that job. We got you that.
Hey, we pay for those white gloves. Hey, Gretz, I had Coffey as my assistant coach at the Spengler Cup a couple years ago. Just talk about this guy, his demeanor. Has he always been funny? Like, you guys have a good banter back and forth. We were having a round table at the bar there.
Still looks like he could play too, by the way.
He really does. But talk about Coff and you guys. I watched some old interviews at Gretz, and it's just great. You two going back.
We're good friends. He's changed a lot over the years. He was a very shy, humble, quiet young man at the age of 20, 21. If I brought people in the locker room, if they were kids, I'd take them right to Paul because he was so comfortable and so easy with them. I've had some adults. The first person I'd take them to is Kevin Lowe or Mark Messier. But Paul has really become a historian of the game. He loves the game. He's a hard worker. He's a great family man. One of my favorite stories was John Tortorella couldn't make it to the All-Star game in L.A., and so the league called me and said, "You're here. Will you coach the team tomorrow?" And I go, "Yeah, okay. Who do I have?" And they go, you got the Crosby Ovechkin team. And I said, "Okay." I said, I feel like I've already won the lot. So I said, "Hey, can Paul be on the bench with me?" And they go, yeah, whoever you want. So I had Billy Smith and Paul Coffey were my assistant coaches. Anyway, so we're playing the first game. I think it was Joseph Falk. He had fallen one time, and he gave the puck away one time. So we're down 2-0 in the first two shifts. And I said, "Paul, is everything okay with that guy?" And he goes, "Yeah, Gretz, you forget this, but it's his first All-Star game. He's probably a little nervous." And I went, "Oh, yeah, you're probably right. Okay, no problem." He walks over to the kid. He taps him on the shoulder. He goes, "Hey, just so you know, Gretz wants to bench you, but I'm going to give you one more chance." So we ended up, I think he got 3 goals and 3 assists. We ended up going on and we won. And the funny thing was, at the press conference before the first game, one of the media guys said, "Are you going to play Ovechkin and Crosby together? They've never played together." And I said, "You think I'm that stupid that I'm not going to play them together?"
The All-Star games back in the day, I watched a clip of Messier passing you a puck and driving the middle, and he spears a guy going to the net, and he goes in, and you guys score a goal. Were the games, were they like that back then, the All-Star games? Like, or was that just the way Mess was and Mess played all the time?
Mess practiced like that. And I knew sometimes we had a bad game the night before, he's really going to be extra growly out there, so I kind of would try to stay away from him. But, he was so unselfish. He was infectious as far as his work ethic and his drive and his desire to become a great player and a champion more than anything. But, the All-Star games are different. In the 60s and 70s and early 80s, there wasn't a lot of hitting, but there was some sort of get in front of guys or bump a guy, block shots. It was just a different game back then, right? Now it's, the game has turned into something more of a spectacle with the skills competitions. And I remember they started these skills competitions, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't want to do skills competitions. I'm horrible at all that stuff." And these kids today, like Zegras, they love it. Patrick Kane, they love this stuff. Connor. But it's great for hockey because they embrace it and they really enjoy it. And the kids look up to these guys and they love doing it. I'm just glad I just got to play the games and I didn't have to do the speeding and all that kind of stuff. Hardest shot. I said, everybody's going to say, if I do any of these things, they're going to say, "How is he in the NHL?"
Hey, Wayne, Uppy brought up Mess, and I know the player he was, but everybody, including yourself and everybody that talks about leadership, like, what was it about Mess that just made him, even to a guy like you, the greatest player to ever play, that Mess was the best leader?
The thing about Edmonton was nobody had an ego, Everybody was on the same page. And so if I was playing bad, Mark would say, "Hey, you got to pick it up." Or, I'd look at Paul Coffey and say quietly, "Listen, you got to be better. We got to be better." There was no egos in that sense. And then the other side of it was, you can't just holler and scream in a locker room. That doesn't, eventually players tune out to that, and it doesn't have that effect. It's about being at practice early, getting on the ice, and working hard every day in practice, being ready to play a game. Listen, we all have bad practices. We all have bad games. But if you know you're giving yourself that opportunity to be the best you can be, that goes throughout the whole hockey team. And that's what that Oiler team did with guys like Mark, Paul, and Kevin, and so on. And that's to me, that's leadership. It's not hollering and screaming. It's about being ready to play. And then on the other side of it is, as we'd say in the Oiler room, hey, if you're going to talk the talk, you better walk the walk. And I said to you earlier, Kenny Linsman scored some of the biggest goals I was ever part of for our hockey team when we won our first Stanley Cup. I remember we were playing Calgary, and we were winning 2-1, and the shots were like 30-8 for us. And Kenny took 2 silly penalties in the second period. I looked up, and the shots are 30-10, and we're losing 3-2. And he sat on the bench, and the only time I think of my career, I yelled at a player. And I yelled at him, I said, Kenny, if you take another, I'm going to break my stick over your head. And sure enough, he scored 2 goals and an assist, and we won 7-4 in the third. And I apologized to him after the game. I said, I'm really sorry about what I said. He goes, no. He goes, I needed it. So that's the kind of group we had, just you want to win. And to me, that's leadership. And scoring big goals at big times, or a big hit, or making a big play. And that's what guys like Mark did.
Even being the greatest player, when you come there, you didn't let that stuff distract you, is what you're saying. You still focused on playing the games. All that other noise was just part of the gig.
But right from day one, when I turned pro, I had an opportunity to do a lot of things and go a lot of places and meet a lot of people. But I always understood and knew that my priority was I had to play hockey. The reason that those doors open is because you're playing the game and playing it at a high level. So I never really sort of got distracted from it. I kind of kept my nose to the grindstone and said, you know what? I'm here to be a hockey player. I'm not here to be an actor. I'm not here to do this or that. Sure, I had some fun doing a few things here and there that didn't interrupt or interfere with my hockey, but I knew my priority was to be the best hockey player I could be.
I got to ask you about the high stick as a Leaf fan. You clipped Dougie there, and there was no call. That was Game 6, correct? And then you guys won Game 7?
Yeah, I scored in overtime in Game 6. Hey, listen, this is what I tell people. In one of the playoffs that year, we were playing against Calgary, and they had this big centerman named Joe Otto.
Yeah.
He was a pretty good hockey player, won a cup, lost in the final one year, played hard, but a big man. And I won a face-off, and I turned around, and he cross-checked me in the ribs, and he broke my rib. And so the whole playoffs that year, they would come in right before warm-up, and the doctor would put a needle on my leg, and he would freeze my whole side. And nobody knew I wore a flak jacket, and I'd always tease the doctor and say, hey, make sure you hit the right spot because I don't need my right leg being down. My take always is, hey, I played with a broken rib. What's a little nick?
Yeah. Well said, Gretz.
Hey, Wayne, it's so great to have you back in the game. You're just your first year in the books with TNT. How was it? You got a great group. Yeah. We love talk. Biz, of course, has been our buddy a long time. Anson Carter. How was your experience first year in the books?
Yeah, I didn't know what to expect. When TNT called me, I was sitting with my family, and my 2 boys are 30 and 28. I told them what was going on. And the first thing my boys said to me is not like, Dad, you should do it or not do it. The first thing they said was, Dad, make sure they hire Paul Bissonnette. That was the first thing I was about. I said, well, okay, but what about me? So when I talked to TNT the next day, they said, oh, my goodness, we've already hired Paul. And so I got to tell you, it was better than I could have ever imagined. The chemistry we had from day one. Rick and I knew each other. I knew Anson a little bit, but I didn't really know Liam. I didn't know Biz. We just all kind of fit in, and there was no egos there. I think it works on the show that Rick and I were good friends, that him and I could debate, and the other guys would see that didn't bother me, that he was telling me I was wrong or somebody else told me I was wrong. There was no intimidation there. Liam is such a professional. He's sort of the quarterback of the group and kind of guides us and leads us through everything. He's truly amazing. So I got to tell you, I'm pleasantly surprised. We had fun, and yet when we needed to be serious and talk about serious things on the show, we did. More importantly, the cast of characters, the directors and the producers and the makeup people and just everybody around us. We finished in Edmonton after Game 4, And I think there was 45 of us that met for a bite to eat and a few beers after the last game in Edmonton. And, we had a couple bodyguards that were there. Everybody was part of it, and everybody felt like part of a team. It was actually really cool. So I have nothing but high praise and respect, and I loved it. TNT is a first-class place. And, of course, it makes it even more fun every now and then when the basketball guys are there doing their show. We can bingo in between when we're off and when they're off. So that kind of gets kind of fun. And Charles and Shaq, they're special guys.
But you bring up Barkley, and he's a big hockey guy. You become friends with him over the years, right?
Yeah, I've known Charles for a long time. He was the guy that actually, after I talked to TNT, called me and, told me all the great things about TNT and how much we'd love it. Charles is just a special man. I've seen him do a lot of great things for people that never get talked about or written about. He's really a remarkable person. And, the one thing about our show, which is similar to Charles and those guys, is you can't hide your passion or love for the sport. And the guys on our panel, like Biz and Hanson and Liam and Rick and myself, we love the game. We try to always be positive about not only the game, but players, the fans, the games. And that's what Charles has. You can tell he loves the game of basketball. And that's what, you can't hide that. And it comes out. And so for me, I love the game of hockey. And like I said, I think it's better today than it's ever been. And I'm proud to be part of it in a small way.
I got to ask you about our boy Russ Courtnall, Gretz.
Oh, Rusty, babe.
We've become good friends with Russ Courtnall over the years. He loves you. He had us up to Sherwood. We almost drank him out of every wine bottle he had. But how good of a guy is Russ? You guys are good buddies, correct?
We had, I'll tell you a really funny story. Him and his brother did a huge charity event for mental health in British Columbia. And we went up to the first event, and Kid Rock was actually on the plane with us. And I said, I always call him Robert. I said, Robert, are you going to come and play golf today? And he said, no, I don't golf. And so we're on the second hole, and he showed up in a pair of jeans and a white tank T-shirt. And he said, I thought I'd come and play a couple holes. I said, yeah, come on, hop in. So we started walking, and this gentleman, I don't know who he is, comes right over me, and he says, wait, this guy can't be, it's a Victoria Country Club. He can't be out here with jeans and a tank top on. I looked at him, I said, this isn't my tournament. The Russ Courtnall's right there. You either talk to him or you talk to Robert. I'm out of this one. He goes, well, I guess he's okay today.
Well, I wanted to ask you one thing, too, because me and the Updogg, we play some members together, member guests. I know you always play in the AT&T, so I never felt nerves like a member guest. Does the Great One get nervous at the AT&T? Because, it's got to be a little nerve-wracking.
Oh, it's awful. Let me tell you. I first tee, and I always say, why am I doing this again this year? But the good news is I don't think I have to worry about that anymore.
Just stick to playing golf up there in Idaho at Gaza Ranch.
Yeah, what a spot, eh, Wayne? I love Gaza.
Yeah, that place is great. Wayne, I just wanted to close this off and say, every time I see a photo of you and your dad, it reminds me of me and my dad. So his legacy lives on through all us guys, our hockey dads that we've had. He was the ultimate hockey guy. He means so much to you and so much to all Canadian kids and hockey kids around the world. So, is there anything, I guess, that he left ingrained in you that you like to share with people?
There's so many stories. First of all, he was a big believer. I don't know if you can remember this. There was this chatter in the 90s of parents who just dropped their kids off at the ballpark, or parents who dropped their kids off the ice rink. And I remember looking at my dad going, that's crazy. I said, the one thing I loved, even today, looking up and seeing my dad at practice sitting in the stands, whether I was 6 years old or 36. So he was a big believer in family, and I think he ingrained that all through the hockey world and the sports world all through Canada. But I'll tell you a quick story. I used to tell my mom when I was coming into town, but I would never tell my dad because he would tell everybody before we knew it. There was a steady stream of people coming through to get a picture or an autograph. So I kind of always would surprise him when I would pop in. And so one day I walked into the house, and my parents' doors were always open. I walked in, and there was a guy lying on the couch. And I walked into the kitchen. I said to my mom, I said, I know a lot of people, but I don't know, who's that guy lying on the couch? And she goes, oh, that's a guy, he's hitchhiking across the country, and his dad told him to spend the night here and get a good meal in him.
We miss him. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
World to us.
Good luck to you guys. And,
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Good luck to the show.
Well,
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, you
Thanks,
betcha.
Wayne. We
Thanks, Wayne.
appreciate it, buddy.